Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name's Hal and today I wanted to go through the 16 books that I have bought in various places since the last time I did one of these like haul kind of updating my bookshelves video. Picked up 16 books this time, which is more than I did kind of in the first half of the year. I just think I've been thinking about books a lot more and I've been on some like adventures in which I felt like I wanted to pick up a book. I'm going to go through everything chronologically, where I got it from, and if I know anything about the book. Maybe a little bit of an explanation as well. The first couple of books that I ended up picking up, I was up in Edinburgh visiting a friend and we ended up going on a little bit of a trawl through a bunch of secondhand charity shops, bookshops, things like that, and I ended up picking up a couple of books from there. Some of these were planned, some of these were not. So the first book that I ended up picking up was If on a Winter Night a Traveller by Italo Calvino. This is a book that I don't really know anything about. The blurb on this is really vague, but I know that I've been interested for a while to pick up stuff by Italo Calvino. His books are widely liked, and he is this famous Italian writer where we get a bunch of his stuff translated into English. I'm Italian, I am interested in reading stuff that, both is written in Italian or was translated from Italian. I did a similar thing by picking up several of Umberto Eco's books. So yeah, this is probably going to be the first one of Italo Calvino that I pick up. It sounds like it's very meta and like literary. It says, a reader goes into a bookshop to buy a book, not any book but the latest Calvino, the book that you're holding in your hands. Or is it? Are you the reader? Is this the book? Beware, all assumptions are dangerous on this most bewitching switchback ride to the heart of storytelling. So yeah, don't know what I'm getting into. I ended up picking this up from Save the Children's. So it was like £2 and I was like, well, seeing that it's here, seeing that this is something I'm interested in reading more of this author's work, I'll pick it up. The next book that I ended up picking up still on that trip was The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I ended up picking this up from the Amnesty International bookshop in Edinburgh. This is a book that I have read. I believe I read it as an audiobook via my library the first time. I really enjoyed it and I thought it would be nice to have a physical copy of this because this is something that I would like to reread in like a physical book form, because I think that might help me with, I didn't quite grasp some of the aspects of the story even though I did really enjoy it. In this one we are following kind of two characters who have to trek across a wilderness in a different like sci-fi world. One of them is one of these characters has been sent to this planet to like observe the people there who go through who are different, very different from the people that he's kind of come from. I really enjoy Ursula K. Le Guin's work, so I thought this was fun, and it's also like a different edition from everything I've ever seen before. So that was part of the reason I wanted to pick it up, because I've been considering getting a copy of this book and I thought getting something that was kind of unique and secondhand would be a good shout for that. The next book that I ended up picking up was Running Close to the Wind by Alexandra Rowland. I've not read this book, but I have read now 2 other books by Alexandra Rowland, and I really enjoyed both of them, so I really wanted to pick this up as soon as it came out in paperback, and I was able to pick this up from Book Lovers in Edinburgh, which is a little independent romance bookstore. I don't actually think that this has romance in it. How this got pitched to me, because I did see the original pitch for this as a post on tumblr.com, is that this is like a queer pirate heist book. We are in the same world as A Taste of Gold and Iron, and our main character has accidentally kind of stole, a thing that's important to the running of the kingdom in A Taste of Gold and Iron, which is like knowledge of how to navigate the seas. And he has to work with his ex to journey to the Isles of Lost Souls. And there's other kind of people there. So I think this is more like ensemble-y. To be fair, seeing that there's an ex and then there's also a calculating new ambassador to the Isles, a beautiful, mysterious new member of the crew, could actually have romance in. Something that I expect Alexandra Rowland to do very well. The next book that I picked up is another Alexandra Rowland book. This is Yield Under Great Persuasion. This is a book that I read earlier in the year and I really enjoyed it. I managed to get this as an ebook via one of my libraries when I was looking this up on various places. Because I ended up getting this from Blackwell's, there was a listing for like this version of the book, because this was, you know, like independently published by Alexandra Rowland. There seemed to be like a traditionally published listing as well. So I was kind of like, I really enjoyed this. I kind of want to pick this up as a physical book before it gets traditionally published, probably as a hardback next year. And then I'm going to have to wait like another year and a half to get the paperback. We are following our main characters, Tam Beckett and Nicolau Lyford, who is the, like, Lyford's the lord of this area. Tam Beckett's just like a guy. Tam has like this one-sided like hatred, rivalry with Lyford since when they were children, and Lyford destroyed a gourd that Tam was growing for like one of the goddesses in this world. But they also have been fucking for 10 years, and this is basically Tam getting a kick up his backside to like work on himself and try and be a better person and not an absolute goblin, and sort out his relationship with Lyford. And it's really cute, it's really nice. The next book that I ended up picking up was Katabasis by Kuang. I ended up getting the Waterstones kind of exclusive signed edition with the edges and stuff. I really enjoy Kuang's work. I have a copy of basically everything apart from Yellowface because I'm very much more a sci-fi fantasy reader, and so I was very excited for her new book coming out. I did pre-order it because I thought it sounded interesting, and I ended up having a really fun time with this. This is a like fantasy. It's kind of dark academia-y in the way that we are following our two main characters, Alice, Law, and Peter Murdoch, who are their final year PhD students in like magical theory, basically, I don't know, the occult, and their supervisor suddenly dies in a mysterious way and gets sent to hell, and they're like, well, we gotta go down to hell and kind of get him back. And it's about that journey through hell in a very like Dante's Inferno type way. I've enjoyed all of Kuang's work, so it was kind of a sure bet that I would like this, and I thought I would actually get a copy of this time instead of what I did with Babel, which was not get a copy and then have to search for a while to try and get one secondhand. So yes, I pre-ordered this via Waterstones. The next book that I ended up picking up was Evocation by S.T. Gibson. This I got secondhand via Vinted, and I do think this is one of the ones where I may have been too, like, the thrill of the hunt of finding things on Vinted was maybe better than actually owning this book. This is the first book in a like urban fantasy kind of romance from S.T. Gibson. We are following our main character, David Aristarkov, who's like this high, like, powered lawyer and also medium, and we start off this book when he unwittingly kind of invites a spirit to possess him, and he's like, maybe that family curse when everyone in my family has been like, we made a curse with the devil for charisma, had something was maybe more important than what I've been considering it to be. He has to turn to his ex, Reese, and his ex's new wife, Moira, to try and kind of work out what's going on. And then there's also development in that relationship. They kind of become a triad. I thought that this was fun. I did give this a 3-star. I then read the second book in this series after I bought this one. And I was like, yeah, this is still fun, but I'm not convinced that I actually need to collect these books. I think this might just be something that I pick up from a library, although I do have to say that I think the covers are absolutely gorgeous. So this is going to stay on my shelves for the moment, but it might leave. The next book that I ended up picking up was The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar. I saw some reviews of this that made it sound really interesting. I really think that the cover's gorgeous, and, you know, the end papers and stuff like that. This was very much I wanted to pre-order a different book, and if I added this and like a bookmark, it got me up to £25, which then meant that I didn't have to pay for shipping via Waterstones, and I knew that my friend really liked This Is How You Lose a Time War, so even if I didn't like it, there was a chance that like I could pass it on to a friend. In the time since I bought this book, I read This Is How You Lose a Time War and I really enjoyed it. So I'm definitely much more interested in picking this up at some point as well. The next book that I ended up picking up was Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. I live kind of near to a really big Tesco's, and they've recently put in like a couple, well, there was one bookshelf and then there was two bookshelves, and now there's two bookshelves, but the second bookshelf is much bigger. Bookshelves to work as like a community library kind of thing, and basically it's for charity. You can either drop off books or you can pick books up. It's kind of like take one, leave one, or you can leave like 50p. So that's where I ended up finding this, and I'm quite interested in this just because, again, I think the cover's absolutely gorgeous. So this is a fantasy, kind of historical fantasy romance book as far as I'm aware. We're following Malis Mitchmore, who is, it's 1814, she's entering society in Bath, but she's hindered by a curse. And so she has to interact with someone who is possibly a witch kind of there. So yeah, I just think this is gorgeous. There's this one, and then there's another one in this series, which I believe follows two men, which I am also interested with, but I thought I would pick the first book up first, especially when I found it available for 50p. Who was I to say no? The next book that I ended up picking up was Peter Darling by S.A. Chant. This is a book that I have read previously. I have a copy of it from like the second printing of it that lives on my shelves, and I really enjoyed it. So when I saw that, because I'm subscribed to the Rainbow Crate emails after buying the special editions for the first three or for the game books, and so I get the updates of like what boxes are going to be going forward because it's like a book subscription service. And so I saw that in one of the boxes they were doing Peter Darling, but I wasn't interested in buying the entire box. So sometimes they do sell individual books or sell boxes after that time has run out. So when I saw that this was on sale, I kind of immediately picked it up because I really enjoyed this story and it wasn't super duper expensive to get a special edition of it. And I do think that the edition is absolutely gorgeous. It also has, the hardcover is printed, and it has, obviously, like, design on the edges, and end papers. They are the same, but I do think it's gorgeous, and it's signed as well. There is a like extra short story, and crucially the text in this is like a serifed font and not a terrible font that's in the like paperback version that I have. So I thought this would be fun. It is something that I might reread in the future just because I did have a really fun time with it. The idea of this is it's a Peter Pan retelling, but Wendy Darling is in fact like trans, and he is Peter Pan. When he was in Neverland, he's, you know, obviously gone back to London and is now trying to escape kind of back to Neverland so that he can be a boy and doesn't have to grow up to be a woman. And where he's kind of gets there, things have changed, and the only person they can really turn to is Captain Hook, his old nemesis, and there's kind of a romance that happens there. This is really fun. I don't remember a huge amount of it, I'm going to be so honest, because I read this so many years ago, but I do remember that I had a really good time with it, so I thought, I have the money, I can pick up a nice special edition of this book that I loved. The next book that I ended up picking up was To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth. This is the sequel novella to When Among Crows, which I read last year and really enjoyed it. And again, I think these covers are gorgeous, so when I knew that this was coming out, I wanted to buy myself a physical copy of this kind of right away. These books are little novellas, and we're following our main character, Demeter, who is the kind of inner family of Holy Order of kind of monster hunters. In the first book, we follow him as he tries to hunt down the Baba Yaga in Chicago. He's originally from Poland, and his interactions with a couple of the other characters, other monsters that we kind of meet. This one we're kind of following on from there, how Demeter is settling into his new life, and then him having to go back to Poland to attend a family member's funeral. The next book that I ended up picking up was The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This was again another find that I found off the community bookshelf. So this was an absolute steal again for 50p. It does have like some sun damage along the spine. A little picture of the goldfinch up here is quite green tinged, but again, it was 50p. I cannot complain. And I picked this up because I had, previous to this, read The Secret History, which I really enjoyed. I was in my hunt for a copy of The Secret History, and so whilst I hadn't read The Goldfinch, I was still interested in picking up other things from Donna Tartt, and I had the ability to pick it up for 50p, so I absolutely took it. In this one, we are following our main character, Theo Decker, who at the beginning of this book, when he's like 13 years old, goes into a museum with his mother. They look at, there is an exhibition on about Dutch painters, where he sees the titular Goldfinch painting. An explosion goes off in the museum and he manages to get out, whereas his mother doesn't, and things kind of unfold from there. I really enjoyed this. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, I did recently post a reading vlog where I read this book. The next book that I picked up was The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a really cute story as to how I got this. Two of my friends recently got married, and they decided that for their wedding what they wanted to do was to have like a big dinner with all of their friends, and they asked all of us to bring along a copy of our favourite book. And basically we would bring a copy of our book there and we could take another copy of a book back home with us. I brought The Moss House by Natasha Pulley to this event, and the book that I ended up picking up and taking home was The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, because it interested me. I really enjoy Ursula K. Le Guin. This isn't a book that I've read, but I'm sure hopefully will enjoy. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I do know that this is one another of her sci-fi books, and that we're following kind of, I think, someone coming from maybe like a moon, like outside of Earth, back to Earth, and kind of adapting there, possibly. I don't know. The blurb on this is incredibly vague, and I'd read the introduction, and I've now forgotten everything that was mentioned in said introduction, so I'll just go into it at some point and have a good time, I hope. The next book that I ended up picking up was The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. This is a book that I've known about for a really long time. I feel like this is one of those books that I'd heard about on Tumblr like 4 years ago, maybe more, before 2020. And it sounded interesting, it sounded up my street, and I've never been able to get a copy of it via a library or, like, to be fair, even see it in bookstores. So when I was, again, up in Edinburgh, I saw a copy of this in the Big Waterstones and I decided to pick it up. What I know going in is that this is a very dense political fantasy novel. I know that there's no romance and that it's a lot of political intrigue. These were the selling points that I was sold this book on in a very real way. We're following Maya, who is the youngest half-goblin son of the Emperor, and then when basically everyone else in line for the throne dies very suddenly, he has to become the heir and become the Goblin Emperor, and it's kind of about that political intrigue situation. As far as I'm aware, hopefully this is good and I have a good time with it, because it's definitely a book that I've been interested in for a while. The next book that I ended up picking up was Swordcrossed by Freya Marske. This is like the first book that I read this year and I really enjoyed it. And so whilst I wasn't super interested in picking up like a hardback version of this book, I thought I might as well pick up a paperback version just because I had such a good time. If I ever want to reread it, it's then on my shelves. And I ended up getting this via Vinted, secondhand. So yeah, in this we're following our two main characters, Martinez J and Luca Pierre. Matty is the heir to like a wool manufacturing business, and his business is not doing very well, and so he is in an arranged marriage with like the heir of a wine business. And in this world, for like important events, you have these people who fight like duels for you. So, you know, in a marriage situation, if anyone opposes this marriage, then there's a duel to be fought, and you hire like a swordsman to like fight in your place, and that's how he first meets Luca Pierre, who is selling his services as a duelist, and kind of things escalate from there. Then I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed a lot of the like details about like wool fabric production and stuff like that. I was having a good time hunting for a copy via Vinted, but I did really enjoy this book as well. The next book that I ended up picking up was Ocean's Echo by Evarina Maxwell. This is I think more than anything, it's set in the same world as Winter's Orbit by the same author, which I read earlier this year. I really quite enjoyed Winter's Orbit, and I was interested in picking up something else that Evarina Maxwell has written. The only problem is, again, in the same way as Winter's Orbit, very difficult to find this author's books via a library, so I wanted to pick up a physical copy of it, and then it would sit next to my copy of Winter's Orbit. But again, quite difficult to pick up a copy from like a physical bookstore. I was in London a couple of months ago for like a work thing, and whilst I was there, I was like, I know that there are copies of these in a couple of different Waterstones in the city centre, so let me go and pick up a physical copy of this book. So that's what happened, and that's how I got this physical copy. It is like shiny, whereas a copy of Winter's Orbit that I have is very matte. But again, due to the difficulty that I had finding this book, I'm just happy that I have it in my hands. And at some point I will probably read it. This is, I assume, another sci-fi gay romance book. It looks like we have two people that have to join themselves in some kind of bond for various reasons. Again, it's probably gonna be completely up my alley because it sounds like there's, again, more political intrigue and tension going on. So yeah, that's the next book. And then the last book that I ended up picking up was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Again, I go into a little bit more detail about how I found this book in the reading blog that I just posted, but like I mentioned, I'd read The Secret History kind of earlier this year. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to get a physical copy of it. The only problem was that the new editions of The Secret History that they're selling have like bright stark white pages, and I didn't think that that was appropriate, especially for this book, and it wasn't something I wanted to own. So I've been like searching and searching for this book secondhand. When we were in Alnwick, my friends, we went to a couple of bookshop, a couple of secondhand charity shops, and one of my friends managed to find this on the shelves, and when he did, sent me a message, and I went running over and bought it immediately. So in this book, we're following our main character, Richard Papin, who manages to get himself to this like elite like liberal arts college where he's like studying like literature and stuff. He really wants to study Greek, but the Greek group is the Greek studies kind of group, the classicist studies, is very small. It's like 4 people with this very like enigmatic and very specific professor. He eventually does manage to find his way kind of into the group, and then kind of things kind of unravel from there. And yeah, I just wanted to have a copy. I really like that this is quite an old and slightly beat up copy, because I think it adds to the energy of the book. I sound so pretentious, but it's true. But yeah, I got this for like, I think it was this was from the Cancer Research charity shop. So yeah. Other things which aren't technically books that I have to show off as well. Well, they are books, but not in the same way. In a move that I think no one is surprised because of how much I love these books, I did end up picking up special dust jackets for my paperback copies of the first 3 books in the All for the Game series. These are by an artist called Starcaster, which is stylized by 2 L's in front of Starcaster and then 2 L's behind Starcaster. And yeah, I managed to get these. I was considering buying these directly from the shop, but I managed to find them secondhand when the shop had closed. So I took, kind of a win-win. I get these the person who's selling them gets them out of their house. This is the dust jacket for the Foxhole Court. This is the one for the Raven King. And then this is the one for the King's Men. I do really enjoy the normal covers of these books. It's just that this is like the series that I love and has special kind of dust covers that I can buy for them. And sometimes I just like pretty things. And then I also recently did buy the ebooks for both Heated Rivalry and The Long Game by Rachel Reed. But those are like on my Kindle and not taking up room in my home. So that's everything that I ended up. So that's all the books that I've hauled in like the past 6 months. I hope that you're having a nice day and that you've read some nice books recently. Bye!